We are recording right now. You muted yourself.
All right, so it's 1:08 Eastern time. I'm going to go ahead and call to order this first electronic caucus of the Region 8 caucus for the Libertarian National Party, featuring states of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, all represented with their delegations. The purpose of this caucus is to hear nominations for LNC representative and LNC alternate. First off, it's been an absolute pleasure serving as your representative the past few years. I did make the decision myself after 2 terms not to seek a third and not to run again. A number of things went into my decision, but I do absolutely intend to stick around and support whoever is elected and help them in any way that they need, as well as still be available for the states in the region. For any help I can provide you guys with fundraising, campaigning, and active down ballot support. No, Matthew Long, I will not be a rep for life. But with that said, I do want to open the floor. We don't want to take everyone's entire day for this. We were going to open up nominations for the position first of regional representative. Before hearing other nominations from the floor, I just did want to take the privilege that I have of making the first nomination. I want to nominate the current sitting alternate, Pat Ford of Rhode Island. This past term, like I said, a number of things had gone into my deciding not to run, changes in my life circumstances and my finances that made it a little bit harder for me to actually keep the obligations. Pat, as alternate, has stepped up a great deal and stepped in to help me make those things workable, and Pat has brought a phenomenal energy and a phenomenal attitude to the LNC, and I would be more than happy to nominate him. Pat, if you're here, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I do, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Pat Ford would be nominated. Next in the order of the raised hands, I see Greg Mealy. Greg, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you, sir. Greg Mealy, delegate from the great state of New Jersey. I want to hereby nominate Rich Bowen for Region 8 rep.
Mr. Bowen, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept. Thank you.
Next, I have Steve Minogue. Steve, you are unmuted.
Good afternoon. I would like to nominate Tucker Coburn.
Okay. Tucker, are you here to accept the nomination?
Sam. I accept.
All right. Thank you, Tucker. Next, we have Daryl Perry of New Hampshire. Daryl, you've been unmuted. Or I'm attempting to. You may have to unmute yourself, Daryl.
There we go. I'm on my phone, so things are on different screens. From the Free Estate in Region 8, I would like to nominate Spencer Dias for either region rep or region alternate. He unfortunately is not in the call, but he has indicated to you that he will accept.
Yep. Spencer did indicate to me before the meeting started that he would accept that nomination if made, and he did ask for Mr. Perry to be allowed to speak on his behalf if he was unable to get here after work. I do believe he's still at work till about 4 o'clock today. So moving on to the next and last hand we have raised, I have Tyler Rowe of Maine. Tyler, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. O'Donnell. I'd like to nominate Sean Lavasser from Maine.
Okay. Sean, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are there no other nominations? Okay. Seeing no hands raised and no one speaking up, we have 5 candidates who have been nominated. for the position of rep. And my intention was to give each candidate 5 minutes to speak on their behalf. If anybody would object to that or suggest a different time, I do see Dan Reel's hand raised. Dan, you are unmuted. You can go ahead.
I was just trying to get my hand raised. I wanted to nominate Noda because we always do this, and it's sort of a custom and tradition. So Noda, I nominate.
Absolutely. Noda will be nominated then. Dan, would you like to be in line to speak on behalf of Noda?
I would.
Okay. All right. So no other nominations. 6 candidates, including Noda, each given 5 minutes, will give us a half hour before moving on to nominations for the alternate position. Does anybody have any objection to that 5-minute time? Mr. Long, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
I was just putting myself in the queue for to speak on a candidate's behalf. Sorry.
Okay. We're going to hear from the candidates first and then see if the body is willing to hear from other people speaking on behalf of the candidates, unless the candidate wants to cede their time to you to speak on their behalf, just given the fact we don't want to keep people here all day.
Got you.
All right. Does anybody object to hearing from the candidates in order of nomination? Or they prefer I go grab a multi-sided die and roll for random order?
Roll for random order, please.
Will do. AJ, can you fetch me a die?
I don't have my cards on me because I went to a rally.
I have a multi-sided die. Is that really what we're calling them, though?
Well, we typically use a
all die
D20.
I have a
Technically, all
D20.
die are multi-sided.
So they have a D20?
All right, Matt, I'm going to read off a name. I'm going to have you roll.
Are you going highest to lowest?
And we're going to go high roll speaks first. Okay, let me know when you're ready to roll.
Ready.
Roll for Pat Ford.
6.
Okay, roll for Rich Bowen.
Fell off the thing. 15.
Roll for Tucker Colburn.
13.
Roll for Spencer Dias.
12.
Roll for Sean Levasseur.
2.
And roll for Noda.
3.
Okay. So the order of speakers will be Rich Bowen, Tucker Colburn, Daryl Perry on behalf of Spencer Dias, then Pat Ford, then Noda, and Sean Levasseur get the low number for the prime position of last speaker. Okay. So without further ado, Rich, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody again. If you are available, let me know when you are ready to have your 5 minutes.
I am ready, Justin.
All right. So.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name's Rich Bowen. I'm from the least free state in the region, New Jersey, although my fellow delegates from New York and Connecticut may feel free to argue that fact. I just wanted to let everybody know I appreciate them listening to me. I tried to reach out to everyone individually over the last week or two, either by Facebook post, messaging, email, phone call, or even boomer snail mail. I hope all of you received that letter. I am very, very interested in working with the party. My delegates and friends from New Jersey know I'm not the best speaker. I'm not the best out front person, but I am a worker bee, and I am committed to doing whatever needs to be done. I don't like to hear myself speak, so what I'm going to do is use the rest of this time, Justin, if it's okay, if everybody could unraise their hand, and Justin, if you don't mind, if people raise their hand, I'd like to answer any questions they might have.
Not a problem at all.
Thanks, Justin.
All right, Mr. Baratelli.
Yeah, Rich, can you tell us about some of the positions you held within the NJLP and work you were doing down in South Jersey and for the state level party?
Sure. I was, since 2017, I was New Jersey Libertarian Party treasurer. I currently sit on the LNC audit committee. I was treasurer for Pete Rohrman's gubernatorial campaign in 2017 and treasurer and deputy chairman of Murray Sabrin's senatorial campaign in 2018. And I myself ran for Cherry Hill Township Council in 2019. So I have been busy. I should also mention that I am also treasurer of the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. And I know that comes with some controversy, which we don't have to get into here, but I will be happy to answer any questions about the caucus. However, I have made it known to everybody, or most people, and if you don't know, if I am elected Region 8 representative, I will resign from the treasurer's job at the Mises Caucus. And I would ask that anyone who wins this position resign from any official capacity in any caucus. Thanks, Joe.
All right, thank you. All right, next is Mr. Kraus in New Jersey.
Thank you, Justin. Rich Bowen, we've worked together a long time, but I would like to ask you specifically, we are a region which is deeply hit by a lack of freedom. What work would you do at the LNC to help our specific states to bind together, to work together, to hopefully share resources, share understandings, to work towards freedom?
Well, I think it comes down to communication and communication between the states. In one way, we have an advantage as a region in that we are fairly closely aligned geographically. There's not a lot of space between us. We can pretty much get anywhere within a day's trip. So I think what we need to do is communicate a little more amongst ourselves, and that's something we have not done in the past or have not done well enough. I think we all need to get to know each other a little better. And when there's an event in one state, we need to make sure that the other states in the regions know about it and are also invited. We've done some of that, but I don't think we've done enough.
Okay. And next, and I believe last we'll have time for, is going to be Andrew Olding of New Hampshire.
Okay.
Hey, Rich. Can you talk about any managerial experience you may have in the private sector?
Yes, I'm actually a self-employed CPA. I have run businesses. I've had partnerships. I actually am planning on retiring next year. I started delivering papers when I was 12. I'll be 62 next May. 50 years is long enough to work. So I have a bachelor's in accounting and a master's in business administration from Rutgers-Camden. Most of my career, I have been either self-employed or have been a partner or a principal in a number of businesses, including CPA firms and also accounting software distributors and training. So I have a fair amount of experience when it comes to being in a leadership position.
All right. Thank you, Rich. And that's our 5 minutes.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Next candidate, we have Tucker Colburn. Tucker, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Great. So my name is Tucker Coburn. I'm the first vice chair for the Libertarian Party of New York. More of my libertarian work has been in campaigns. So I was field director for Larry Sharp in 2018. I was just recently national team lead for Ken Armstrong's campaign for vice president, which unfortunately has ended, or unfortunately for myself and for Ken. I am now field director for Joe Bishop Henchman's campaign for LNC chair. And I've worked on a variety of campaigns in New York, helping them in advisory roles. So with that background in campaigns, my number one goal for the region is to enable us to start winning races, specifically state lower house races. There are many states in Region 8, specifically New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, and Vermont, where our state lower house is fairly large for the population size. New York and New Jersey, I'm sorry, but we have a lot of work to do in our 2 states. But for those 4 states, we have a huge opportunity to win state lower house races, and that will be an amazing boost for our party in the region. But before we can do that, we need to fix our communication issues. And I see 3 communication issues. The first one is on the LNC itself. I believe everyone is aware the LNC has become extremely contentious. And a lot of that is because folks aren't thinking about how their communication will be perceived by others, whether it's necessary to make a comment. It might feel nice to make a snarky comment or snap back at someone, but in the end, does the communication that you put out help us move forward as a unified party? I think that most people are not considering this when they talk to other LNC members, and that has been one of the reasons that we have devolved into the situation we have right now. So as regional rep, first, I would make sure to always represent the region well and make sure that any communication I have publicly or on social media is well thought through, and I consider how it may be perceived, and I make sure that I do not add to the contentious nature of the body. The second form of communication we need to improve is from the LNC down to local folk. I'm not sure if you all have noticed, but we've had an information gap, especially over the last few months in regards to that. A lot of folks were not aware of what was going on with the compromise. When we had our national LNC meetings online, a lot of people in the region weren't aware that a compromise had been met. They didn't know what was going to happen with the online convention, and there are other issues. In fact, with this meeting, our participation, although we're at half of the entire delegation, I would love to see it higher. And I think that it would have been higher if we had been able to get information out to our local folks faster. And so I would love to strive to have better communication from the LNC down to our local folks. And then the final aspect of communication, as Rich touched on briefly, is from state to state. We have an amazing opportunity to be able to help out other candidates within the region. For example, if Mr. Hunt is running again in Rhode Island, I would love for us to spotlight his campaign and say, here is a campaign and a candidate who can win in a state lower house race. He can win. We can help him win if we're able to allocate our resources in Region 8 and help him out. I also would love to hear communication from our regional rep about things like our lawsuit in New Hampshire. I've heard about it through social media, but I haven't heard about it through our regional rep. And that's a missed opportunity for us to be able to help each other out in Region 8. So finally, once we solve those communication issues, we can pivot to working on winning campaigns. And for me, that's 2 things. The first one is making sure that we transfer knowledge properly, especially from things like the Libertarian Frontier Project, which some of you may be aware of. Basically, we're in the Midwest, we're identifying races that we can win. We can run one-on-one with a Republican or a Democrat, and the district is favorable to Libertarian voting. We are then recruiting candidates, and then we're running winning campaigns there. And that's something we can bring back to our states here. We need to do better precinct analysis. I saw when I was on the Southern New Jersey call, Vic Kaplan did a wonderful job with precinct analysis. I was blown away. And that's information and knowledge that we have in our region, but it's just not being shared state to state. So I would make sure to highlight folks like that are doing amazing work and make sure that they're able to transfer their knowledge. And then finally, it's encouraging the LNC to continue programs such as the eCanvasser program, which is giving candidates access to high quality campaign tools that they'll be able to use similar to what the Democrats and Republicans have in their proprietary software for their candidates. So it's an amazing opportunity for candidates to have a level playing field with Republicans and Democrats. Overall, my 2 issues are communication and winning races. If that's what you stand for, I hope you'll vote for me, Tucker Coburn, for Region 8 Rep. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tucker. I will say, as far as the lawsuit in New Hampshire, that the reason we haven't communicated much on that is because it's not an LNC lawsuit. It's one New Hampshire is doing on their own. They decided not to wait for the LNC's bickering to get something solved. And so I applauded them and decided to help them move forward with doing it on their own rather than doing it as the LNC. Next, we have Spencer Dias. Mr. Perry, are you available to speak on Spencer's behalf?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Tell me when the time starts.
You have 5 minutes starting now.
Thank you. Again, Daryl Perry, rising to speak in favor of Spencer Dias for Region 8 Rep. again, unfortunately, Spencer is unable to be here today for the Region 8 caucus because he's at his day job, which is a service leader at one of the larger supermarkets in New England, that being Hannaford Supermarket. Spencer also has a lot of experience within the Libertarian Party and also as an elected official. He is an elected member of the Budget Committee in his town of Goffstown. He has served as vice chair and is the current treasurer of the Southern New Hampshire Libertarian Party, which is the largest affiliate in New Hampshire. And he also was on the Vermin Supreme campaign as the New Hampshire director for the Vermin Supreme for President campaign from December of last year until the convention just recently. And a couple of people have touched on what they view as sort of the job of region rep, where really the bylaws specify that the region rep is to serve as the intermediary between the affiliates in the region and the LNC. And if any of the members in the affiliate or any of the affiliates themselves through their executive committee officially contact the region rep, it is the duty of that region rep to make sure that that issue is brought before the LNC. It doesn't mean necessarily that the region rep has to champion the issue, though if it's something that they support and believe in, they should do that. But they are really our voice on the LNC. And Spencer has proven throughout his short career, because, well, Spencer can't legally drink yet, alcohol, that is. Like, of course, he can consume water and milk, but you know, he's a young guy, so he doesn't have this really long record of activism. But he has been involved in the party as long as he's been politically aware, and he will be a good voice for us on the LNC. And I yield any other time that might be remaining to anyone that might be willing to speak on behalf of Spencer Dias for LNC Region 8 rep.
2.5 minutes left. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on behalf of Mr. Dias?
I would. That was my thing from before.
Okay,
I
go
just,
ahead, Mr. Long.
I just wanted to say that Spencer is a really good person. I've known him since I've started being active in politics here in the Libertarian Party, and good. It's important to find a good person with a good sense of judgment, and Spencer is just a very well-meaning person, and I could see them doing great things in the future. So, woo. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Long. All right. So, stop that timer. Next, we have Pat Ford. Pat, are you available to speak?
I am. How's that? Is the sound quality okay? I have a little.
Your sound quality is fine. You have 5 minutes right now.
Well, my name is Pat Ford, and it is my honor to humbly ask you to elect me to be the Region 8 representative to the Libertarian National Committee. Excuse me. When I interview people, and as I often do, because I am involved in a lot of media projects on behalf of and independent of the Libertarian Party in advance of liberty, I often ask folks what their libertarian moment was. In mine, it was an accumulation of years' experience as a community activist. In Rhode Island, corporate cronyism is alive and well. A convention center, a useless one that was built in 1993, continues to hemorrhage cash, I opposed in the beginning of my career. The Providence Place Mall, which all it did was to redistribute income, as it so often does, at favorable advantage to the investor class by granting significant multi-million-dollar 20-year tax benefits. And of course, many of you might know about something called 38 Studios, where despite being declined by states around the nation, a former Red Sox pitcher managed to get a close to $100 million investment from a tiny broken state because of his appeal to, again, the cronyist aspects. We didn't have social media then to organize us. But it was the culmination of events that led me to realize that by supporting a government that exists solely to benefit the duopoly elite, they promoted the biggest lie of all, that your support of that would somehow, in the case of so many of their supporters, result in personal benefit as if by osmosis, trickle down, drop down. Supporting the banksters, supporting corporate cronies everywhere could lead to your own personal engagement, a chance at the big time. And then one night I'm driving along, it's somewhere around the 2012 era. I'm in northern Massachusetts listening to talk radio, and I hear a voice, a familiar voice, a host, talking about a presidential candidate. And he starts talking about self-ownership and small government and individual success and personal rights. I'm like, who is this guy? So I called in. And the voice answered, hi, my name is Governor Gary Johnson. How can I talk to you? What can I talk to you about? And that became my engagement in 2012 with the Libertarian Party. I've never needed a title to do the job. I've always believed in simply tackling a problem, surrounding yourself with a great team. Sometimes you're the team leader, sometimes you're part of the team. And simply getting to work. I've been blessed to work alongside wonderful libertarians in Rhode Island and around the country. A couple of features, a trip with Tom Mann and Dan Fishman to the Mexican border last year to interview Brazilian refugees and highlighting simultaneously a privately funded refugee center. 7 years of interviewing and promoting libertarian candidates on radio and digital video. Countless late nights testifying at a corrupt state house where you could roam the halls, stepping right into endless hearings where self-appointed poobahs turn their schemes into law. Picketing a downtown developer who was attempting to turn their poor investment choice into a $100 million public investment, a public-private partnership. Rallying folks in opposition to the owner's tax on medical cannabis, opposing weaponized legislation that sought to place a sugar tax on soda, a tax that would have bankrupted a local 107-year-old beverage producer. Speaking at and speaking for sex worker rights, from online interviews to just before COVID hit, a speech at a commemorative event at a local drag club. Attending a Libertarian club meeting at the University of Massachusetts. And an event that I'm proudest of because it really represented a team effort by Rhode Island. And it involved bringing in subject matter experts, twice defeating the Pawtucket Red Sox attempts at getting $80 million in tax subsidies. I've had the personal privilege to interview endless subject matter experts on a radio turned digital video show of my creation to advance, if you will, the libertarian message in Southern New England, not willing to wait for a media to decide to cover it. Who ultimately, by the way, has followed us successfully in Rhode Island now so that we get television exposure for candidates like Bill Hunt, who's now a member of the rotating cast, as I am, of the state's official, if you will, talking head show. In my mind, the LNC region representative has three key responsibilities. Number one, providing board-level guidance, representing the interests of the state affiliates in Region 8, and also managing a standing committee. I've got experience in corporate governance, the time and resources necessary to attend in-person LNC meetings, as I've done in the 6 months or so that I've been the alternate. I've gotten an indoctrination, if you will, particularly over the last few months in the ways of the LNC. Clearly, processes that need to be changed significantly. I've also got a demonstrated history of willing to ask and answer the tough questions with the LNC. In the revocation, if you will, of Maj's invitation to be the keynote speaker, Justin gave me the floor to ask the question to the LNC. What happened? Why did it happen? Let's have a public airing of the events that led up to this so that we can gain understanding, learn for the future, and also answer so many questions by so many members. Ultimately, my request to have the discussion was voted down. At the next meeting I did have a conversation, though, about the direction of our social media. I had received multiple complaints from folks, and I was troubled by myself as to why our social media continued to advance the cause of so many non-libertarian Republican candidates when, as my, if you will, the other gentleman running for the seat has so aptly pointed out, that we need to be harnessing the message on behalf of all of our candidates, not just our presidential, but our down ballot candidates. So it's something that, on a volunteer basis, I continue to do with my weekly show, An Hour with the Candidates, so that we can get literally every down ballot candidate in America in front of a camera, give them a little opportunity to phrase local issues, the perspective of a libertarian candidate. I will engage in the following. As a primary delegate, I would actively engage the alternate with opportunities to advance issues that they are concerned with, presenting regular opportunities to assume the primary delegate chair. For those that don't know, the alternate very often, if you're not blessed as I was with a primary delegate, in this case Justin, who was willing to give me time to bring my message, very often the alternate delegate can sit there on the sideline, having traveled, with no opportunity to introduce things to the LNC. I see it as a team approach. I want to have monthly AMAs with region memberships. I want to have monthly.
We're about out of time, Pat. So
okay, monthly and as needed, calls and Zooms with state chairs. Thank you. I hope you'll consider my candidacy. And God bless the Libertarian Party.
All right, thank you, Pat. Next up, we have Noda. Is Mr. Real in Connecticut available to speak for Noda?
Yes, I am.
Whenever you're ready, you have 5 minutes, Mr. Real.
All right, is my audio and video on?
Perfect.
All right. So, as you know, Noda is always a choice. If you think we can do better, that's when you vote none of the above. Full disclosure, my choice is Pat Ford. However, somebody always has to advocate for none of the above. So, none of the above. We'll give you 3 shiny $100 bills if you vote for them for Region 8 alternate or Region 8 rep. Otherwise, no one running in this race is not principled and hardworking. So regardless of who you vote for, you got to get a good guy, a solid team player, and a hard worker. But if you feel you can do better, support, vote, and say none of the above. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dan. There is still a few minutes left on the clock for none of the above. If anybody else would like to speak on behalf of that lack of a candidate.
Yes, I would like to say a few brief words.
Mr. Perry, go ahead.
I would like to remind people that Noda is a substitute for Vacant, Vacant being the greatest world heavyweight wrestling and boxing champion in the history of humanity, and no one can represent you better than no one.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Anybody else?
I just have one thing to add about none of the above. None of the above brings to the table a complete void, a pile of nothing, and an entire absence of any plans going forward.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Real. If nobody else would like to speak on behalf of none of the above, we will stop their time.
I'll point out, hang on. I'll also point out for Daryl, the Vacant is very soon to be the heavyweight champion of the UFC as well. So there's that.
Okay. Well, next and last but not least, we have Mr. Lavasser in Maine. Sean, are you available?
Yes.
Okay. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
And after all that, I have to aspire to be better than nothing.
Okay.
Who am I and what am I doing here? I'm Sean Lavasser. I've been a member of the Libertarian Party since 1992. I first got my teeth cut on politics when I first got entranced by the Ross Perot campaign. Then he dropped out. And then I found that the Libertarian Party matched my beliefs the best, and I've stuck with it all these years. Nice time for the phone to ring. There, okay. Sorry about that. I have been a candidate for office many times, for state rep 3 times. I was appointed to the Knox County Budget Committee about 7 years ago, ran for re-election 4 years ago, won. Don't get too impressed. I was the only one on the ballot for a race for 2 people. But I've served on the Budget Committee for 7 years now, and I'm running for re-election again. I have served in numerous positions in Maine party leadership, including chair at times when we've found ourselves very thin on members, and currently treasurer. Many of you may have seen me from the many, many conventions I've attended since 1998. And those of you who have been to LNC meetings during conventions often see me there at the LNC meetings before and after the convention. I'm kind of weird, even amongst a party of weirdos like we are. So what am I doing here? Probably something stupid. I've been toying with running for LNC for years. Fantasized a little here and there and going, no, there's better. And this term has kind of disturbed me a little. Now, bickering on the LNC is nothing new. I mean, it's not even the worst it's been. But there have been a lot of people on the LNC I know and respect, and they're arguing with each other like cats and dogs to no good effect. We've all become fearful of one another. And that fear has led us to think we need to have certain machinations to try to prevent those we fear from getting the upper hand or whatever. And, you know, we think we're acting like Machiavelli and end up looking like Inspector Clouseau in the process. Occasionally, I worry I've contributed to it online with an occasional snark. It's a bad habit that I find when I'm just on the sidelines powerless. When I'm in a meeting with people and having to deal with them as people, if I can't get my way, I learn to either try to understand them or sit down, shrug my shoulders, and move on. I think a lot of us have not been able to do that. And that's why I said, okay, let's give it a try and run for the LNC. I would gladly accept an alternate spot and go through an apprenticeship as well. I think this is a party that's very varied. The question of pragmatism versus radicalism, anarchist versus minarchist, which is the right choice? Although I skew a little pragmatist, my answer is yes to all of them. We are a better party for our differences, and we got to remember that. And I hope I'm able to bring a bit of diplomacy to the LNC. Further, have experience in business because a lot of the LNC is not politics, it's running an organization. I am co-owner and president of Electrotech Incorporated, a electrical assembly house in Rockland, Maine, founded by my parents. I've worked here all my life, so I can read a spreadsheet, handle employment issues, and I think that's about my time. I welcome your vote. Thank you.
Perfect timing, Sean. Thank you very much. Now, that does conclude the nomination process for the position of LNC representative for the primary seat. There are 6 candidates: Rich Bowen, Tucker Colburn, Spencer Dias, Pat Ford, Sean Levasseur, and none of the above. I'm going to ask 4 of the candidates. I already know Mr. Dias and none of the above will both want to be placed on the ballot for alternate if they do not win representative. Do the other 4 candidates all consent to me automatically placing them on the ballot for alternate should they not win the primary rep's position?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Pat, yes.
All right. Mr. Bowen?
Yes. I agree.
All right. Thank you, all 4 of you. All right. So we're going to close nominations for representative. A ballot will go out via OPA vote for the representative position at the conclusion of this meeting, once we're done with the alternate nominations. And these 6 candidates will be listed. It will be an approval voting ballot. You can approve for 2 of them. You can approve of 3 of them. You can approve of 5 of them. You can approve of 1 of them. Whichever candidate receives the most votes of approval will be elected the next representative. That ballot, like I said, it will go out via OPA vote. I am going to follow up with the state delegation chairs and ask them to follow up to make sure everybody gets the email. It will be open for 48 hours once the email is sent. And anybody who does not receive the email, we can follow up. And then we do have individual unique codes that you can vote with to make sure that your ballot is counted if there is nothing in the email. Mr. Reel, I see your hand raised. Is your hand raised for a nomination for the alternate position or a point of order otherwise?
I just have a point of parliamentary inquiry. Would it be true that if you really wanted nobody to win, you could maximize the chance of nobody winning by only voting for nobody?
That is correct. Approval voting, like all other voting systems, is subject to tactical voting. And if you really wanted nobody to win, approving of nobody over anybody would be the best way to make nobody win. All right. With that, we are going to move on to the nomination phase for the alternate representative. So again, hands raised. I will recognize people one at a time to make nominations for alternate. All right. First hand I see raised is Mr. Coburn of New York. Tucker, you can go ahead.
Yep, I'd like to nominate Ashley Shade.
Okay, Ms. Shade, do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Any other candidates or any other nominations? Mr. Reel?
Of course, nobody. None of the above.
Yep. Is there anybody else with a nomination to be made?
This is Will Sampson.
Yes, Mr. Sampson?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Sean Lavasser as alternate if he is not available.
So Sean already accepted my request.
Right.
Any candidate for representative who does not win to be automatically placed on the alternate ballot.
Thank you.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, can you read the current list of nominees?
The current list of nominees would be Ashley Shade of Massachusetts, none of the above, and then any of the 5 nominated candidates for representative who is not elected representative. That would be Rich Bowen, Tucker Coburn, Spencer Dias, Pat Ford, and Sean Lavasser.
Thank you.
If there are no other nominees, Mr. Reel?
May I make another nominee?
You may.
I'm going to nominate Mr. Matt Long of Connecticut.
Mr. Long, do you accept? Matt, are you there?
I am here. I wasn't expecting to be nominated. I would like to decline nomination at this time.
Okay.
I appreciate the offer, but I am running for judicial committee, and I'm going to stick with that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Long. Are there any other nominations? All right. Seeing no hands raised and nobody speaking up, we're going to move on to candidate speeches. The only candidate we have not yet heard from is Ms. Shade, Massachusetts. So no objections. I'm just going to give the floor to her. Ms. Shade, you have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. I am running for Region 8 alternate for several reasons. The first reason I'm looking to represent you as an alternate is because the alternate's position is to be able to work with anybody. I have been endorsed by people throughout the party from many different caucuses, and I've worked with candidates who represent many different values. I have the ability to work with anybody. As the alternate, we should be promoting our region and our delegation. I believe the LNC is currently broken, and our message is broken to the people. We have a difficult time bringing in new people because we're so terrible to each other. We have a difficult time retaining new people because they come in and they're welcomed, and then they're immediately yelled at and screamed at because they're different and they don't believe the same values as you do. We all have different values that we represent. We all have different positions that we take. And it is important to do a much better job communicating to continue to grow the party, to continue to have a voice. And so what my skill levels are is in organization and communication. The reason why our communication is broken as a party is because we listen to criticize rather than listen to learn. If we are truly going to grow and bring in new people, we have to be willing to listen and learn from other people's ideas and experiences, and then teach them how liberty can be applied to their lives to make it better. That is the mission and my goal as the alternate, to help teach people how to spread that message. I am currently involved in many organizations, both inside and outside the Libertarian Party. I recently served as the policy director for Vermin Supreme and Spike Cohen. And in our message, what we did with our policy is we presented real libertarian ideas that could bring people freedom and enlightenment. We presented them in a way that we were able to say, look, if you give us a chance, we can show you that you don't need government in your life, that you don't need to be controlled, that we can do better together. And a message of being together, a message of love and support and compassion is essential for our party's survival. It is the only way we will truly be able to bring freedom to everybody and be able to crush the duopoly. If we continue the fighting and the pettiness and stop listening to each other, we are going to fail in our quest for liberty in our lifetimes. But if we take the time to truly take a moment and say, I understand, okay, you think differently than I do, and that's okay. And here's how we can present a new idea to bring you closer to where we need to be. We need to find common ground. We need to stop fighting about what we disagree with and come together with what we do agree with. And I guarantee everybody in this room is against the state, is against government violence, is against persecution of anybody. And so we need to focus on these ideals that truly make us the party of freedom. That is why I'm running for Region 8 Rep alternate, and that is why I would like to earn your vote. If you have any questions about my experience, if you have any questions about my message, please contact me. I would be happy to speak to any of you or all of you, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Shade. So that does conclude the hearing from the candidates for rep and alternate. As I said, there will be a ballot going out shortly, hopefully in the next half hour. I do have a few email addresses to update from New Jersey that was given to me before we send out the ballot. If anybody has any questions, the ballot will have a direct email back to me, Justin, at justinodonnell.us, or my LP email, justin.o'donnell@lp.org. I just want to again say it's been an absolute pleasure being you guys' regional rep for the past few years. The past 2 terms have been a bumpy ride, is the best way to put it. But I wouldn't have traded the experience for anything in the world. I do see one person we're trying to raise a point of order. Mr. Olden, go ahead.
I was just going to ask that the nominees, everyone who was nominated for one thing or another, given that there is only 48 hours to vote in this poll, and we did only get to hear them speak for 5 minutes, if they would be willing to again come back on and make known where someone could reach out to them with further questions.
Yeah, if there's no objection, I'll recognize them one at a time to give that information. First, Rich Bowen.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, the best bet is to reach me at my email address, which is rgbowenjr@comcast.org. rgbowen@comcast.net. So that's RG Bowen Jr. at comcast.net. I would also say to visit my Facebook page, which I do have set up. It's Rich Bowen for LNC Region 8. Obviously, I've been working on that a lot. And I agree, you know, people haven't had a lot of time, so I'll be monitoring it for the next 48 hours, and we'll be sure to answer any and every question you have. Thanks.
All right, Tucker?
Yep. I also have a Facebook page. I check that probably the most frequently. So it's just Tucker Coburn for LNC Region 8 Rep. You can also email me at tucker.coburn@gmail.com. That's COBURN, no L. And then I'll just put my information in the chat as well. You're welcome to call me or text me as well. My phone number will be there. But if you just call me out of the blue, I probably won't pick up unless you leave a message. So those are the best ways to get in touch with me. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Perry, do you know the best way to get in touch with Mr. Dias?
Yes, you can find Spencer Dias on Facebook at either facebook.com/Dias for LNC, Dias spelled D-I-A-S, Dias for LNC, the number 4, or Dias, number 4 NH. Both of those are Facebook pages run by Mr. Dias. He also has an email address that is spencer.a.dias@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Ford?
Yeah, I'll be going live on an Ask Me Anything at the following link, and I'll post the link in the Region 8 page. It'll be facebook.com/the Coalition Radio. I only put it there as opposed to my own page is because I, in case of issues with friendships and whether or not people are Facebook friends. And I'll also post my cell phone number there. You can call me the rest of the weekend if you have questions. You can also email me or instant message me at my personal Facebook handle is PO Taxpayer. So if as in pissed off, PO Taxpayer. But I'll be going live in AMA in just about 2 or 3 minutes. And listen, I have made some LNC votes in the last couple months. If people want to question me about those or put me on the spot, that's fine. Or any of the ideas or suggestions I had made surrounding the convention, I'm perfectly comfortable discussing that with anyone from any of the delegations. So facebook.com/the Coalition Radio. Okay.
And Mr. Lavasser? You're still muted, Sean?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay. My email is Sean_L, SHAWN _L @lpme.org. You can also go to my personal website, comicspundit.com, or just seanlavasser.info. We'll get you there as well. The very first post, the last post I had from months ago, was a reproduction of my application to be on the bylaws committee. And that contains a lot of biographical info, a lot of more of my history with the party, but I'm gladly will answer any questions emailed to me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Shade?
Yes, I will include both my email and phone number in the chat. If you're looking to speak with me via the phone, please text me your name first. That way I know who I'm speaking with. You can also find me on Facebook, Ashley Shade for LNC Alternate, or you can find my personal Facebook page. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you're looking to know more about me or what I've done, I'd be happy to share that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shade. And the point of order from Mr. Flower in Vermont, NOTA does have contact info. There is a Facebook page for NOTA for LP 2020. NOTA was running a campaign for president, and NOTA is now actively running for LNC chair. But any questions you have for NOTA, you can reach out to Mr. Reel, Mr. Perry, or that Facebook page, I'm sure. All right, is there any other questions, or does anybody have any other last-minute announcements they'd like to make to the caucus before we adjourn? I see 2 hands raised. Mr. Bowen, do you have another point to make?
I do. I just want to, I don't want to use up the election time. This is not about the election. So if there is an objection, I do have some information about a member of our party. Most of the people in New Jersey know Jim Tassone, who was a former vice chair, is a former vice chair of the New Jersey Libertarian Party. New Jersey delegates all are Facebook friends with him. I suspect that some of the Region 8 Facebook people are friends with Jim Tassone. That's Jimtosone. But you may not know that Jim actually contracted coronavirus early in the New York, North Jersey surge, was on a ventilator for 20 days, survived, and is now in a long-term physical therapy care. He is going to have to learn to talk again, walk again, pretty much do everything. But happily and fortunately, he's moving in the right direction, and he is also engaging on Facebook again. So I just urge everyone here in this region, if you are friends with Jim, and even if you're not, if you could just reach out to him, say hello, and wish him the best. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowen, and everyone give our best to Jim. Hands raised, I have next Mr. Sarwark of New Hampshire, followed by Mr. Castellano of New York and Ms. Crawford of Massachusetts. Mr. Sarwark, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who's running for service on the Libertarian National Committee. You know, I don't want to influence anyone's vote, but I'll tell you, I was just having a conversation today with someone. The most important thing for being on the National Committee is not what your ideological preferences are. It's not whether or not you're a candidate or not, or an activist or not, or a chair or not, or anything like that. It is a question of how well do you work with others, and how well do you work with others who you may not like, who you may disagree with, who you may be on the losing ends of votes with. How well do you work together? And there are some very good people in this party that should never be anywhere near a committee, because it's not the right place for them to thrive, and it's damaging to the organization. So keep that in mind. That's my only advice. And vis-a-vis none of the above for national chair, being the only person who's ever gotten NOTA to win at a national convention. If you search Sarwark and NOTA on YouTube, you'll see an excellent speech, which I highly recommend to anyone who's speaking for NOTA in Orlando. You may want to take some notes.
Thank you, Mr. Sarwark. Mr. Castellano, New York.
Thank you. I have a point of inquiry about the balloting for alternate. Will there be a separate round of balloting, or do approvals for the primary seat just carry over? Thank you.
So there will be a separate round of balloting. So the first ballot is going to go out. It'll be open for 48 hours. Anybody who is not elected on that first ballot to the primary seat will then go out on a separate ballot to include Ms. Shade for alternate. And that ballot will go out shortly after the conclusion of the first ballot, and it again will be open for 48 hours.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Crawford?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I joined the party in 1980, so that was like 40 years ago. And I have never been so well represented to the LNC as I have during your tenure, Justin. So I'm really sad to see it go.
Well, thank you very much for that, Chris. For those of you who don't know, Chris is the one who recruited me into the Libertarian Party in 2016 when I was just an ticked off small L libertarian who decided to get involved with the Gary Johnson campaign, and Chris brought me into the fold in LP Massachusetts, and next thing I knew, I was on the LMC. So thank you for getting me involved, Chris. And Mr. Perry.
Question about the voting. Are we requiring a majority to get elected? And if so, how many people will be dropped after the first round?
Approval voting typically does require a majority. If no candidate gets a majority of approval vote of ballots cast at the end of 48 hours, since it is not specified in the region agreement where to proceed from that, thank you, Mr. Perry, for bringing up something I overlooked. I will reach out to the 8 state chairs to determine how we're going to proceed with from that point, whether we take the top vote getter or if we do have another runoff. Given how great a slate of candidates we have, I will be shocked if we do not have somebody get a majority of approval on the first round. But if not, we will defer to the state chairs to make sure that the decision is down to all the delegates for input before we decide how to proceed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Yes. One other question.
Yep. Mr. Perry.
Would it be, and I'm not sure if region agreements are considered to be on the level of bylaw where they can't be suspended by a vote. That might be a question for the chair, who actually is in attendance.
What do you want to know?
Would a motion be in order if I wanted to suspend the rules to modify the voting method?
It's going to be up to the region. The National Committee has no particular rules for how regions elect their representatives. There are some regions that do it with informal polls of state chairs. There are others that do caucuses of this sort. With the nature of bylaws generally as a parliamentary matter, they can only be suspended or changed by the same group that adopted them. So,
right. So my question is,
if a regional agreement was agreed to by, say, all the state chairs, then the rules for the region would be changed by that same group.
Okay. Mr. Perry, if I'm to understand, if I were to take a guess, are you intending to try a motion that the ballot simply accept the top vote getter in the absence of a majority?
I was actually going to motion to change to Buckland, but if that did not pass, then yes, I would motion to do the thing you just said.
Okay. I would suggest that given the simplicity of approval voting as opposed to Buckland voting and explaining on such short notice to the delegates who are expecting approval voting ballots, that perhaps if we were to simply ask the 68 delegates and state chairs in attendance of this meeting, if any of them would oppose simply accepting the top vote getter in the absence of a majority for an approval vote. I do see Mr. Harris's hand raised that was raised before. Mr. Harris, do you have an objection to simply accepting the top vote getter?
I just have a point of information.
Okay. Would anybody else have an objection to Mr. Perry's suggestion of simply accepting the top vote getter in the absence of a majority from an approval vote?
As a delegate, just speaking as a delegate, I have no objection.
Okay. Mr. Kaplan?
Yes, I would have an objection. If nobody gets a majority, it would seem to me that NOTA should be the winner and we should need to pick from another group. I don't anticipate that happening, but that's what I'd like to see happen if it goes that way.
Okay, noted. Mr. Olden?
Okay. Opposed to letting NOTA win if NOTA doesn't get more votes than other people in the thing, because I don't think that's how NOTA has ever been supposed to work. If it doesn't get more votes than other people, it shouldn't be winning. We should to take Mr. Kaplan's objection seriously, I think just come up with some elimination criteria and run it again until somebody does get a majority. And if NOTA does get a majority, then we can pick a new slate. I do not believe that it is in the correct intentions of NOTA that if NOTA loses to somebody, but that other person does not get a majority, that NOTA should win. That's not how NOTA is supposed to work.
Mr. Olden, Mr. Kaplan, I will say, based on my understanding of approval voting, should all the delegates vote based on approval, that a runoff with eliminating candidates should not actually change the results on successive rounds. Because if somebody wasn't approved of in the first round, they would not be approved of in successive rounds.
People do tactical voting. Can we not ignore that?
But we'll move on to the next, Mr. Cahill.
Yes, I think the question here is, everyone probably has like their first pick. We've heard the debates, we've heard the candidates speak. The question is, how strongly do you feel about your second or third or fourth choice, if you even have one? My suspicion is that most people don't really have strong feelings about a second or third or fourth choice. My suspicion is that people pretty much just support their first candidate, which would lend me to support the single round approval voting that you suggested. I just think that it's food for thought to keep in mind if people have strong feelings about people who aren't necessarily their first choice.
Okay, thank you. Next, we had Ms. Altman.
Hello. I just wanted to say that this meeting did get emailed pretty late with not a lot of notice, and there's only 68 delegates out of the entire region that are present to make a vote, so I don't think we should be changing any way that we should be doing the balloting. We do have 48 hours to make a decision, and we should just continue the same way as we did POTUS and VP. So that's my order.
Yeah, with regards to the not all 128 making in, I think we peaked at 78 delegates participating.
At 78 now? Okay.
By my count, it was 78 we peaked. We're at 69 right now. I did announce earlier in the meeting, this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to ask Mr. Olding, who's taking care of the recording for us, to upload it to Facebook in the Region 8 Facebook group. And I'm also going to ask Mr. Fishman at LPHQ to upload it to the Libertarian Party's YouTube page as soon as possible in the next 2 hours, or as soon as possible for those delegates who were not able to participate to see what the candidates had to say for themselves. I do apologize. I'm going to take a lot of the blame here for the late notice of the meeting. We were anticipating having access to the delegates list. Some drama arose, and the delegates list was not readily shareable with me from the credentialing committee. So I had to work through the state chairs last minute to get the list put together on our own to get the notice out. And I do apologize.
Understood. I just don't think we should be making any vote in this meeting at this time to change how we do the balloting. That's all.
Yep. With that, I do not think a vote in this meeting to make the change would be in order anyways. To Mr. Starwark's point, the 8 state chairs are the ones who bound the agreement, and any change to the motion would go through them. Okay. In the what I see as a highly unlikely event, that none of these wonderful candidates gets a majority of approval, I will contact the 8 state chairs for their permission before certifying that election. And we're going to leave it to them, and they can ask for feedback from their delegates and their state committees before certifying that election.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Altman. Next, we have Mr. Kraus.
Hi, I'd like to move to adjourn.
Adjournment is a privileged motion, Mr. Kraus, but Mr. Harris has been waiting with another point of order. So I'm going to put your motion to adjourn immediately after I hear from Mr. Harris, who has been patiently waiting for us.
Hello, and this is Harold Harris. Are you hearing me?
Yep, we can hear you fine, Mr. Harris.
Okay, this is more of a point of information. At the beginning of the meeting, I think it was Daryl Perry mentioned that Joe would be up in New Hampshire on Wednesday at 8 o'clock and maybe the night before. But I'd like to get more information about that so that I could possibly, me and other candidates that are running for office in the different states might have an opportunity to have some photos taken with her.
Absolutely. Mr. Perry's contact information, I believe, has been put in the chat. If not, Mr. Perry, could you put your email and contact information in the chat for those who would like more information about Joe's visit? She is coordinating with Mr. Perry at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Seeing nothing else raised, Mr. Kraus, your point of order to adjourn. Is there any objection to adjourning at this time? Other than Mr. Krause's hand going up and down, I don't see any further objection.
Sorry.
I want to thank each and every one of you for your patience and making this go as smoothly as possible. Region 8 should hold themselves as a high example of how an online convention or caucus could function smoothly without any problems. Thank you, each and every one of you. Like I said, the email ballot should go out shortly, and we're going to get that video posted as soon as possible for you guys to share with those delegates who were not able to make it. All right. Anything else? Again, my contact information, justin.o'donnell@lp.org, or my personal email, justin@justino'donnell.us. You guys can feel free to reach out to me with any questions if you ever need any help with your state parties, even when I'm no longer the region rep at any time. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you in the future too. Other than that, bon voyage. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.
Mr. O'Donnell, before you officially close the Zoom here, were any of the delegates from Region 8 added to the alligator list?
Just the one guy from New Hampshire, I think.
I got in trouble for it.
I didn't see any official
I think
alligator.
I'm the only one.
Yeah. But Mr. Rice from Alabama is keeping an alligator list. And if somebody wants to reach out to who the Alabama delegation considers the obstructionist, I'm sure Mr. Noah Rice in Alabama would be happy to fill you in.
Justin, there was a request for information from Ashley Shade in the chat. She asked if there was going to be a write-in option on the ballots.
I do not believe that OPA vote allows a write-in option for a approval voting election. If when editing the ballot to add all the candidates in, I can make that happen, I will. But I do not believe the system allows for it.
Since we are adjourned, would you like me to stop recording at this time?
You can stop recording whenever you want, Mr. Thank you for recording, by the way.
You're totally welcome.